Hi, my name is Chris. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be doing Leetcode problem number 16, three-sum closest. This is a medium, considered a medium problem. It says given an integer array nums of length n and an integer target, find three integers in nums such that the sum is closest to the target. Return the sum of the three integers. You may assume that each input would have exactly one solution. Okay, so basically what we need to do is we need to check all combinations of three of the integers in this array and figure out which one is the closest to 1, right? So we've got -1, 2, and 1, excuse me, which is going to equal 2, so that's 1 away from the target, right? Then we can check -1, 1, and -4. That's -4, so that's 5 away from the target. And then finally we have 2, 1, and -4. That's -1, so that's 2 away from the target. So -1, 2, 1 wins because that's 2. It's 1 away. So the output is 2. So that's basically what we're doing here. So let's go ahead and grab these two variables here, and we're going to jump over to CodePen. I like to do my algorithms there so I can see the code, what the code is doing as I type it. Okay, and then we're going to create a function. We'll just call it func. And then for now, we're just going to return nums. And then we console.log function so we can see it in the console. And now we should see nums. There we go. Okay, first thing we need to do in order to make this happen is we need to sort nums in ascending order. So we're going to say nums.sort, and then a, b, arrow function, a minus b. And now we should have it sorted into ascending order. There we go. Okay. So how do we do this? I'm going to grab this, and we're just going to put it up here for reference. Okay, because from now on we're going to be working with the sorted nums, not with nums, the original nums. Okay, so what we need to do is we're checking the sum of three numbers. So we're going to use the 3-pointer idea here. Basically, it's just like the 2-pointer, but we're adding one more pointer to our situation here. So we're gonna have a pointer here, starting here, pointer starting here, and a pointer starting here. Right? So 1, 2, 3. So basically, you're going to start at the first element of the array, and then you're going to have another pointer, one higher than this pointer, and then you want another pointer that starts at the very end of the array. And so then we're going to loop through the array with a for loop, and then inside, and that's, we're going to call the index of that for loop. I'm going to just write this out while I'm explaining it. It'll be easier. So we're going to set let I1 equal 0, and then if I1 is less than nums.length, we're going to increment I1. So let's make sure that's working. sure I didn't mess something up. Nums I1. Oops. I1. Cool. We're in good shape. So that's where our first pointer is going to go. Okay. Then our next pointer, I'll go ahead and create that right now. We set let I2 equal I1 plus 1. And then let I3 equal nums dot length minus 1. So now if we console log all of these, oops. I'm going to be lazy here for a second. I'm just going to copy this. Nice. And then we need to make this a 2 and this a 3. All right, so there's all our values that are with our pointers there, right? So if we go in here and look at the console log, we have -4, 1, 2 for the first iteration. So -4, 1, 2. And then for the next iteration, I1 and I2 are going to increment, right? So we see -1, 1, 2, -1, 1, 2, right? So I3 is never changing because we're not telling it to change yet. And then we have I2, 2, right? So I'm sorry, I1, 2, 2. So now this is 1, this is 2, and this is still 3, right? So you get the idea. Okay, so those are our 3 pointers. So what we need to do is within this loop, we need to create, well, before we go into the loop, let's create a variable. We're going to call it closest sum. So this is basically, you know, whatever combination of numbers, whatever sum is closest to, whatever sum of combination of these numbers is closest to our target. That's what this is representing. But for right now, we're just going to initialize it as the first 3 values. We got to give it something. Okay. So now closest sum should be -4, right? Just check that. Right? -4. There we go. And we're going to get rid of this for now. Cool. Okay. So what we need to do is on the first at the beginning of an iteration of the for loop, for the first iteration, what we're going to do is this is going to be I1, this is going to be I2, and I'm sorry, this is I1, this is I2, and this is I3, right? So what we're going to say is first we're going to calculate our current sum, which is going to be -4, -1, and 2, which will give us -3. Okay, then we're going to say if our current sum minus the target, right, 1, is less than our closest sum minus target, right, because we're looking for the difference, we're going to make our closest sum our current sum. If not, we're not going to do anything, right? And so the other thing we need to do is we need to increment our pointers correctly. So we're also going to say if our current sum is less than our target, we increment I2. Increment I2. If it's greater than our target, we decrement I3, so we bring it this way, right? Okay. And then we also need to tell the code, we're going to put all this in a while loop, right? So while loop will just continue to run until a certain condition is met. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get this while loop to run while I2 and I3 are not the same value, right? So, once, like for example, if I2 gets here and I3 gets here, we want to break out of that loop and start this for loop over. Okay, so I'm going to comment this out for now because I don't want to create an infinite loop. It's really easy to do while your code is just running constantly. So in order to meet that condition that I just discussed, we're going to say while I2 is less than I3, and then we're going to do a bunch of stuff. Because if it's less than, it can't be equal to, right? I suppose you could also, do this, right? So as long as they're not equal, then I'm going to keep it like that. Okay. So first thing we need to do is we need a current sum. So we're going to create a variable for that, current sum. And we're going to say that equals nums, at all three indices added together. So then we got to change this to 2, and we change this to 3. So that will be our current sum. And so the next thing we need to do is we need to check if the difference between our current sum is less, the difference between our current sum and the target is less than the difference between our closest sum and the target. If that's the case, we make our closest sum our current sum. Now, there's one tricky thing about this. You have to take into factor negative values here. So one thing we can use is math.abs, which stands for math.absolute. And what that's going to do is if you have a negative number, that's going to make it a positive number. If it's a positive number, it doesn't do anything. So that is very handy for this situation. So we're going to say math.abs. So if math.abs, and then there we're going to say current sum minus target, right? If that's a less than, I'm just going to copy this, paste it in, and we're going to say if that's less than closest sum minus target, we're going to change closest sum. We're going to make closest sum equal current sum. Okay, so that handles that. Then the last thing we need to do is we need to handle incrementing I2 and decrementing I3 correctly, right? So the way we're going to do that is we're going to have an if else statement. We're going to say if current sum is less than target, we increment I2. Then we say else if the opposite is true, right? Current sum is greater than target, we're going to decrement I3. The only other possibility, we don't need else if, we just need else, is if they're equal. In that case, we can just go ahead and return current sum, because the current sum is equal to the target, right? Okay, so if current sum is less than the target, we're going to bring I2 up 1. If current sum is greater than target, we bring it back 1. All right, so we should see the result of 2 for this test case. Let's give it a shot. And there you go, we got 2. So now let's make sure it's going to work for all test cases. Let's go back to Leetcode. Paste in our function. I'm going to run it. 2 test case passed. Now let's submit it. All right, very good, very good. We 13 milliseconds to beat 77%. All right, I'm good with that. All right, thank you for watching this video today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more like this, please like and subscribe to my channel. Enjoy your day.